Okay. Hope everyone is doing well. Um, and as best you can, enjoying the holidays. So this is going to be the last video that I'll be posting on fences. So what I'm going to do is go through the final scenes of Act Two. You should have finished fences by now. And I'm sure some of you are preparing to write your midterm on fences, so this will be an important video for you to watch. Keep in mind that this being the last video on fences, when we get back from our spring break next week, we will be starting with Hamlet. So please, I know it's a busy time right now, but please do try to start reading Hamlet and try to get through the first act as best you can. I will be posting material, video, PowerPoints, and so on before we meet for our virtual class on next Wednesday in a little over a week. So be alert to that. Check Omnivox. I'll get those up end of this week or certainly early part of next week, certainly before we meet on that Wednesday. Okay, and again, we're in good shape. Okay, we should have plenty of time to get through Hamlet. Again, there'll be videos posted every week and other materials, and we will have our virtual classes where you can ask me questions directly, and you can always contact me through Omnivox. When it comes to your midterms, you'll notice that I did set up for you to submit through Omnivox your final essays. Just follow those instructions. And again, any questions, let me know. And again, if there's anything you want me to look over before you submit your final draft, send it to me. Again, I will make some general comments about it, that this needs some work, or there's some issues here, or where it's working well and this is bang on, and so on. I'm not going to do more than general comments because obviously I'm not going to write it for you, but I will give comments. So by all means, take advantage of that. Okay, so back to fences. And let me get this up. Okay, so we finished up with Act Two, Scene One, right? Which, as we discussed last time, is a pivotal scene for obvious reasons. Okay, it's Troy comes clean about his affair, that he's going to be a father, and we again to take note of how Rose responds, and Rose's response, where she really starts talking about what she's had to endure and so on, is a means by which we can really see how self-absorbed Troy is. All right, and remember, he still says, when she asks him directly, "Are you still going to see Alberta?" He says yes, and that his refusal to demonstrate any remorse or to even apologize, he seemingly is trying to explain himself, and seems to be expecting Rose to understand why he's been having this affair. And all about the responsibilities of being a husband and a father. He needs his outlets, and fails to recognize, to some of it, certainly in Rose's mind, as she points out, fails to recognize the sacrifices that others are making. And again, an example of his self-absorption. And then we have that final confrontation when Corey comes in, and they have a physical altercation, and down here where Troy says that's strike two. Remember, the baseball metaphors abound throughout. Okay, so when we get to scene two from Act Two, Scene Two, no, it's 6 months later. Okay, so after this dramatic scene, we're jumping to 6 months later, which tells us quite a bit. If Alberta was pregnant, well, she's probably due fairly soon. And we're wondering what's been happening between Rose and Troy during those 6 months. And all this is going to be explained to a large extent here. And what we're looking for, given that it's been 6 months, is the changes. I mean, it's dramatic change, and the time length, the 6 months, is a demonstration, as we'll see, of how much things have changed, and particularly with Troy's life, where Troy was the center of attention. Troy was the one always in control, and now, well, let's see. We see this. The first thing we started is with Troy and Rose, and Rose comes to Troy. I want to talk to you, and Troy's like, oh, all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, after all this time, you want to talk to me, huh? You ain't wanted to talk to me for months. You ain't wanted to talk to me last night. So we're seeing already that Troy still has this particular kind of attitude, right? It's like, he's defiant. He remains defiant, and seemingly as a result of that defiance, has not in any way seemed to indicate any kind of remorse, or taking responsibility for what he's done wrong. That's key, because he's all about responsibilities, right? We've seen that all through the play. And yet here, seemingly, he doesn't seem to acknowledge his responsibility in disrupting dramatically this family. And all of a sudden, you want to talk to me. What do you want to talk about? And Rose says, tomorrow is Friday. Now, we know the significance of Friday. The play starts on a Friday night, right? And Friday is a key moment in this play, a recurring moment, where what we've seen on Fridays is it's payday, and Troy and Bono coming home to drink together, and the playfulness, though sometimes crossing certain lines, between Troy and Rose, and the banter with Lyons and with the money and all these things. So Friday is significant. And we see Rose immediately brings up that tomorrow's Friday. And Troy, again, in his defiance, I know what day tomorrow is. You think I don't know tomorrow's Friday, etc. Right? Maintaining that attitude. And Rose says, I want to know if you're coming home. Now, here again, the initial reaction to that is, he hasn't been coming home. We don't know what's been happening for 6 months. And Troy responds, I always come home. There ain't been a night I ain't come home. I mean, he is coming home at night, right? And he's adamant about it. I want to know if you're coming home. I'm always home. What are you talking about? I come home every night. Of course, there's nuance here, right? He may be coming home every night, but what time is he coming home? Where is he going after work? And this is what Rose asked. That ain't what I mean, right? We see here. I want to know if you're coming straight home after work. And Troy, now note how, and again, when we're watching a play, when we're reading a play, we have to play a bit of the role of the director. How is he saying these things? We have to extrapolate that based on our analysis of what we've been seeing unfold. And that's why there can be multiple interpretations on how this is played out. So that ain't what I mean. Are you coming home after work? And Troy's response, I figured I'd cash my check, hang out at Taylor's with the boys, maybe play a game of checkers. And Rose's reaction is, I can't live like this. I won't live like this. You living on borrowed time with me. It's been going on 6 months and you ain't been coming home. So question right off the bat, is he hanging out at Taylor's with the boys, playing checkers? Or has he been going to see Alberta? Because remember, he said he's going to continue to see Alberta. If that's the case, he's lying. And remember, part of his regiment of ethics, if you will, that Bono so admires is, don't lie. And Troy, again, in his defiance, when she says, you ain't been coming home, I be here every night of the year, 365 days. Again, he may be coming home. That's not what she's talking about. It's a different kind of coming home. And that's important to remember. Okay. Hold on just a minute. Right. Sorry, brief interruption. But we're back. Let me get back to the screen. Okay. So again, what she's discussing here is, coming home and not going off to see Alberta. And what's I think most important about this exchange is, again, what seems to be the line, okay, and him being somewhat coy about it, and to some extent, I would argue, a bit delusional. He's still, again, with no remorse, and he's coming home at night, basically just sleeping there, going to work, then going to Alberta's. How long can this be sustained? And clearly what we're seeing here with Rose as well is what we're seeing with, what we're seeing with Rose is her frustration. I mean, it's really, and Troy's inability to recognize what this is doing to Rose, and Corey for that matter, right? He's, what are you talking about? I'm still coming home every night, right? And he seems, again, that anger at her and so on, as if she's at fault here. She says, I want you to come home after work. And again, his defense is, I don't mess up my pay, right? Because Friday is payday. I don't have no money but what you give me back. I just want to have a little time to myself, a little time to enjoy life. All right, again, seemingly reasonable request, but of course in the context, it's not so simple. And Rose immediately, what about me? When's my time to enjoy life? His inability to realize how much this is hurting Rose, and seemingly him not caring, which is disturbing. I mean, again, remember, a big part of, as we've discussed in the previous videos, a big part of what this play is about is, what are we to make of Troy? And it's not simple. And you'll see as we get towards the end, he's a very complex character. And then here, he was, I don't know what to tell you, Rose. I'm doing the best I can. And Rose's response, again, she becomes such a dominant character at this point. Seeing like it's still trying to, in a sense, trying to enlighten Troy. You ain't been home from work but time enough to change your clothes and run out, and you want to call that the best you can do? She's calling him out. And then Troy seemingly breaks a little bit here. I'm going over to the hospital to see Alberta. She went to the hospital this afternoon. Looks like she's going to have the baby early. I won't be gone long. And Rose, well, you ought to know they went over to Miss Pearl's and got Gabe today. She said, this is, again, we're looking at Troy and what he's doing during these 6 months. Miss Pearl's is where Gabe stays, right? The home that he stays at. She said, you told them to go ahead and lock him up. Troy vehemently denies this. Whoever told you that is telling a lie. Rose's response, it's not a lie. I read it on the papers. You signed these papers. I ain't told them nothing of the kind. I saw it right there in the papers. What'd it say, huh? And Rose has said, you told them to take him. Then they screwed that up, just the way they screw up everything. I ain't worried about what they got on that paper. Ain't worried about what they got on the paper. The paper he signed allowed them to lock up Gabe. He's not concerned about that. Again, his hubris, his self-absorption, his inability to take responsibility. He's responsible for Gabe being locked up. He denies it, but we're going to find out a little bit about, he may not have realized what he was signing, but he won't take that responsibility. They screwed up just the way they screw up everything. Say the government sent part of his check to the hospital and the other part to you. Now, this is where it gets even more. Again, we're not getting clarity here. Because on the one hand, this is quite damning information. It's suggesting what Rose is accusing him of is signing a paper knowingly, sending Gabe, his brother, okay, into lockup of a sort, and then pocketing half the money. It doesn't seem to really mesh with what we know about Troy. But on the other hand, do we really know Troy? And Troy's response to that ain't got nothing to do with that if that's the way it works. I ain't made up the rules about how it works. He seems to be almost acknowledging it here. Well, you know, if he's going there, then yes, I have, as his guardian, whatever his status is in relation to Gabe, yes, they give half to me. That's how it works. Okay, don't blame me. Okay. And Rose's response, you did Gabe just like you did Corey. You wouldn't sign the paper for Corey, but you signed for Gabe. You signed that paper. And Troy, again, is he overtly lying? The complexity of this character. I told you I ain't signed nothing, woman. The only thing I signed was the release form. And then we get this. Hell, I can't read. I don't know what they had on that paper. I ain't signed nothing about sending Gabe away. Well, if you don't know what was on the paper you signed, then you don't know whether you signed something to send Gabe away. He's always looking for means to rationalize his actions. Always looking for ways to rationalize his behavior so as not to take responsibility. And again, the irony of that is his excuse for running to Alberta and continuing to see Alberta is because his responsibilities as a father and as a husband are too overwhelming. But we're seeing here examples of him not taking responsibility. And Rose's response, I said send him to the hospital. You said let him be free. Now you done went down there and signed him to the hospital for half his money. You went back on yourself, Troy. You're going to have to answer for that. It's extraordinarily damning. And she's absolutely right here. If this is what went down. Did he consciously do this? Did he not understand what he was signing? We're not really told, but Rose seems pretty sure. See, now you've been over there talking to Miss Pearl. She got mad because she ain't getting Gabe's rent money. That's all it is. She's liable to say anything. And Rose is right. I seen where you signed the paper. You know, this is, you're busted, so to speak. And his response is, you ain't seen nothing I signed. Now, Rose, I mean, from what we know about Rose, she's not lying. So this is, again, him almost perpetuating this delusional world. Like he cannot face certain realities, so he has to hide from them. He's almost as if he's making up a story about the things that he did to try to make it look like he didn't do them. And we see that tied in to his storytelling. What's she doing? Got papers on my brother anyway. Miss Pearl telling a big fat lie, and I'm gonna tell her about it too. You ain't seen nothing I signed. Say, you ain't seen nothing I signed. Now he's getting angry. And now he's trying to dominate Rose as he's done in the past, but a lot's changed in the last 6 months. Right? He's trying to almost will her to believe him. Of course, she believes her own eyes. Rose exits into the house to answer the phone, and then she comes back, and here's, again, another big plot moment, if you will. Alberta had the baby. It's a girl. And Troy, I better go down to the hospital to see her. I got to go see her now. That's only right. Again, his fixation on doing what is right. And then Rose tells her Alberta died having the baby. So, you know, from Troy's perspective, he's been, you know, this crisis in the family, the crisis that Bono was warning Troy. Troy, don't, if you're having that affair with Alberta, this goes way back to the early parts of the play. You shouldn't be doing that, right? That's deception, that's betrayal, and then Troy getting caught, having to confess because Alberta got pregnant, and then continuing to see Alberta. And now Alberta's dead. And there's a baby. And Rose, the baby's fine. They say the baby's healthy. I wonder who's going to bury her, Alberta. And Troy's getting defensive. She had family, Rose. She wasn't living in the world by herself. I know she wasn't living in the world by herself. Next thing you're going to want to know is if she had any insurance. Again, his constant defensiveness, manifesting as aggression. Troy, you ain't got to talk like this. And he goes on, that's the first thing that jumped out of your mouth. Who's going to bury her? Like I'm fixing to take on that task for myself. And Rose, again, desperate, don't push me away. I ain't pushing nobody away. Just give me some space. That's all. Just give me room to breathe. And then we have this, because Roy has to digest this now. He was defiant. He was going home at night, but he was spending every evening with Alberta. And that was his way of coping with, and hiding probably to a large extent with the reality of what it's doing to his family, because he's had Alberta. Now Alberta's gone. And then this quiet rage that threatens to consume him, because by holding it in and not being honest, which goes contrary to the things he proclaims he believes in, he's keeping things in, and his contained rage blossoms a bit here. And again, he comes into his the personification of death here. All right, Mr. Death. See, now I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take and build me a fence around this yard. See, I'm going to build me a fence. Remember fences, around what belongs to me. And then I want you to stay on the other side. See, you stay over there until you're ready for me. Then you come on, bring your army, bring your sickle, bring your wrestling clothes. I ain't going to fall down on my vigilance this time. It's an acknowledgement there, this time. Okay? It's almost an acknowledgement that he's made some big mistakes here. You ain't going to sneak up on me no more. When you ready for me, when the top of your list say Troy Maxson, that's when you come around here. You come up, knock on that front door. Ain't nobody else got nothing to do with this. This is between you and me. Now, man to man, you stay on the other side of that fence until you're ready for me. Then you come up, knock on the front door anytime you want. I'll be ready for you. This is it's his acknowledgement now that his isolation is going to become much more complete, because while he's been isolated from Rose and Corey and his family because of the affair he had with Alberta, he didn't really have to deal with that level or that recognition of the level of isolation he's in because he had Alberta, right? That's where he was going every night. Now she's gone. Now he's alone. He's ruined his family. He's unapologetic for it, demonstrates no remorse. Now his one outlet is gone. And now he's right. It's you and me, Death, Mr. Death. And now it's the fence. I'm building this fence. You stay on the other side of that fence. You leave me alone until you're ready to take me. And I will go down fighting. But you stay on the other side of that fence from here on in. And that ain't nobody else got nothing to do with this. This is between you and me. There is no more family. But of course there is, because there's the baby, which we're going to see how that pans out. But you see his defiance and then his withdrawal into himself. Act 2, Scene 3. It's 3 days later, and Troy enters carrying the baby. Rose is there, long, awkward silence. Troy says, Rose, I'm standing here with my daughter in my arms. She ain't but a wee bitty little old thing. She don't know nothing about grown-ups business. She innocent, and she ain't got no mama. And Rose says, what are you telling me for? And she turns and exits into the house. Okay. Understandably, Rose is not going to be welcoming to this situation. Well, I guess we'll just sit here on the porch. Note where they are. They're on the porch. And so much has happened. That's where the play begins. So much happens on that porch. And remember when that begins, Troy Maxson is the center of attention, control of everything, taking care of his family, has his good friends, calling out people at work for their injustices. I mean, he is a huge, powerful presence, and everyone gathers around him. Now he's out on the porch, and all those people are gone. All he has left is this baby, and this baby is pure innocence, and she's just a newborn child. He's on the porch, he sits, he speaks loud enough here for Rose to hear. Okay, it's important. This is telling us that, you know, he wants Rose to hear what he's about to say. A man's got to do what's right for him. Again, unapologetic. I ain't sorry for nothing I done. It felt right in my heart. Is that good enough? Okay. No regrets, even though you have disrupted the people and hurt the people that you claim that you love. And to the baby, what are you smiling? Right, all right now, and right now your daddy's scared. He's talking to the baby, right? Because we sitting out here and ain't got no home. And now he's getting certain levels of understanding of his situation. He has no home. He goes there, he sleeps there, he's still there, but it's not a home. And try to imagine the awkwardness of that environment. And then he, says, I've been homeless before, but I ain't had no baby with me. But I've been homeless. Right? You remember when he left home when he was 14 and all this. So he's saying, I can handle it. But it's different having the baby. And he sings this lullaby referring to trains, right? There's, the trains traveling, especially the type of train ride, and he's talking about where you just hop on, you go where you want to go, that kind of freedom. The train representing that freedom that Troy feels he deserves to have had, and feels he made the grand sacrifice by having a family to not be on that train to freedom. Possible way of looking at this particular lullaby. And Rose enters from the house, stands and faces her and says, she's my daughter, Rose, my own flesh and blood. I can't deny her no more than I can deny them boys. It's two sons. You and them boys is my family. You and them and this child is all I got in this world. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd appreciate it if you'd help me take care of her. It's quite a request. And notice how he's still saying them boys. Remember, don't forget, we've seen, these moments as conflicted as his relationship is with Corey and Lyons, right? But we've seen these moments where we get the sense that he does care about them. He just has a particular way of expressing it and particular beliefs that drive the way he acts with them. And here he's turning to Rose after everything he's put Rose through and asking Rose to help him take care of the baby he had with Alberta. And how does Rose react? Troy, you're right. I'll take care of your baby for you. Because like you say, she's innocent. And you can't visit the sins of the father upon the child. A motherless child has got a hard time. She's doing the right thing. She's willing to take on this huge responsibility to care for this baby, this child who doesn't have a mother. She takes the baby from him. From right now, this child got a mother. But you, a womanless man. It says a lot, this scene, because we see this, Rose doing the right thing, this extraordinary, magnanimous behavior on the part of Rose, willing to take on more sacrifice, more responsibility to save and help this infant, this innocent child. But no, she takes the baby from Troy. Not that Troy would be able to take care of the baby, but it's the last thing Troy has, really. And now the baby goes with Rose, and Troy is completely alone. Act 2, Scene 4. It's 2 months later. Lyons enters. 2 months, okay, and Rose is there. So you're going to wake Raynell. That's the name of the baby. I just got her to sleep. Why is Lyons there? Pay Papa $20 I owe him. So again, we're seeing Lyons now. Remember we saw him at first, and Troy was saying, "Oh, you're just here to take money from me and all this stuff." But no, we're seeing Lyons' character here to a large extent. He's there to pay him back. All right, and Corey comes. Right, as Lyons starts leaving, Corey enters, and what are you up to? What's happening, Corey? Trying to find a job. And Lyons expresses, "Yeah, I know it's tough out there. Jobs are scarce. Look here, I got to run. I got to go." But know what Lyons says. Talk to Papa. He knows some people. He'll be able to help you get a job. Talk to him. See what he say. Yeah, all right. So there's still, despite everything, right, there's still this on Lyons' part, and with Corey seemingly to agree, he's still your father. He'll do so. He'll help you. And they still look to him to some degree for that help. Okay, struggling with it, no doubt, because of what Troy has done. But he's still there. And there's still this relationship. It's changed dramatically, but it's still there. And Lyons exits. Corey wanders over to the tree, picks up the bat, and assumes a batting stance. He's, again, that's him trying to do what his father does, right? He's a football player, not a baseball player. Dissatisfied with the result, he tries again. Troy enters, right here. They eye each other for a beat. Corey puts the bat down, exits the yard. Obviously, the relationship is challenged deeply, but there's still something there at this stage. Troy's response, "I'm coming in, everyone's going out." Well, yeah, that's his situation now. He's alone. He gives his money. Right, she tells him Lyons has left his money, and he's bringing his money. It's Friday, put it on the table. She's going out. He's now become barely significant in this household. He's still bringing the money, so he's still following that responsibility. But there's no relationship here. Corey leaves as soon as he walks in, and Troy's asking Rose, what time you coming back? Rose, ain't no use in you studying me. It don't matter what time I come back. You can't do that anymore. I don't answer to you anymore. You're a womanless man. And this is, for Troy, where he's put so much of his life into what he thought, in any case, was being the responsible father and husband. being in control. Remember? We talked about so much of his need for control. It don't matter what time I come back, Troy. His response, I just asked you a question. Well, what's the matter? Can't I ask you a question? And she said, listen, I don't want to get into it. She can't even be bothered. Your dinner's on the table, your dinner's in the stove, all you gotta do is heat it up. I'm off to the bake sale, church. What we're seeing here is Rose is now adapting to the new life. She's taking care of the Rennell. She's very involved with the church. Okay, we see that connection there. She's doing the right thing and so on. And yeah, Troy, come drop the money here and so on, but don't ask me about my business. What could be worse for Troy? Not here discussing whether he deserves it, right? But again, we're seeing what's his life like now. Rose exits. Troy sits down on the steps, takes a pint of bottle from his pocket, drinks, and begins to sing. And what is he singing? The old dog, his name was Blue. Remember this song. Remember Blue from the story about him and his father. Okay? You know Blue was a mighty true. You know Blue as good old dog, blue trees, a possum in a hollow log. You know from that he was a good old dog. So he's reminiscing, he's drawing the significance of the song is it's the old dog, his name was Blue. This song is what Troy needs to reach for because there's nothing else there anymore. And Bono enters. And what we see in this scene is how much they as well have, remember how close they were. And he's lost Bono as well. He says, you ain't stopped by in a month of Sundays. You know, what are you doing here, Bono? And Bono said, I just stopped to see you. You know, Bono says, since you, there's a bit of rationalization. Bono says, since you got your promotion, I can't keep up with you. Used to see you every day. Now I don't even know what route you take. So whereas they work together all the time, remember, at work, once Troy got the promotion, he's a driver now. So he's not working with Bono. That's just, again, another element that has caused this separation between the two. The other is, of course, Bono has lost a tremendous amount of respect for Bono because, for Troy, because Troy demonstrated that he wasn't who Bono thought he was. Right? Remember how much Bono, to a large extent, almost worshipped Troy. And then Bono starts talking about, you know, it's getting tough lifting the barrel. I'm going to put in my 2 years and call it quits. He's going to retire. Troy says, I'm thinking of retiring myself. And Bono's going, you got it easy. You drive now. You could go for another 5 years. And Troy's, again, this is demonstrating not only his separation from Bono, but his continued isolation. It ain't like working the back of a truck. Ain't got nobody to talk to. Feel like you're working by yourself. Okay, so he's lost Bono, and he's more and more isolated, more and more lonely. And talk a little small talk here, right? Again, Troy still his, you know, combative self. You know, he's all them preachers because he knows that Rose goes to church. All them preachers looking for somebody fat in their pockets. Then he says to Bono, I got some gin here. Remember how they used to drink together all the time? Bono says, no, I'm not drinking with you anymore. Just stop to say hello. I ain't never know you to say no to a drink. You ain't got no work tomorrow because it's Friday night. He just thought, I'm fixing to go over to Skinner's, Bono says. We got us a domino game over his house every Friday. Bono doesn't come over and hang out with Troy on Fridays now. Now he goes over to Skinner's every Friday and plays dominoes. And there's a little more banter here, but you know, this is just a demonstration of you know, how much has changed. And they make this reference over here. Remember the bet they had. If you build the fence, I'll have to buy Lucille a refrigerator, right? Remember that from the previous scene. Lucille told Rose you bought her a new refrigerator. And Bono says, yeah, Rose told Lucille you had finally built your fence. Because remember the end of the last scene, I'm going to build this fence and Death, you stay on the other side of that fence. Figured we'd call it even. Mono exits and Troy drinks from the bottle. Starts singing again. He's getting drunk. And he's singing this one song that gives him some kind of solace and some kind of how this song now becomes even more closely identified with Troy. Old Blue died and I dig his grave, let him down with a golden chain every night. When I hear old Blue bark, I know Blue treed a possum in Noah's Ark. Hear it ring, hear it ring. And Corey enters. And we have this, again, this accumulation of scenes in the buildup to the final and ultimate break with Corey. We've seen it building, and here it comes. And Troy's a bit drunk. You're trying to get by. He's sitting on the steps, and Corey tries to get by. When you get by, you say, "Excuse me," like your mama taught you. Corey won't do it. He says, "Come on, Pop, I got to get by." Corey starts to maneuver his way. Troy grabs his leg and shoves him back. Now, Troy here, doesn't matter how much he's been drinking. He's the one who's now behaving like a child, right? He's not going to let him by until you say, "Excuse me." It's like in a sandbox in an elementary school. And Troy, you just going to walk over top of me? And Corey's saying, "I live here too. And you going to just walk over top of me in my own house?" I mean, what he's saying, there's an element of truth what Troy's saying, but is this, what level of maturity is involved here? Again, can pass off a certain amount of it to him being drunk, but at the same time. And not only what this scene is telling us about Troy, but look to see what it's telling us about Corey and Corey's growth. Okay? I ain't scared of you. I ain't asked if he was scared of me. I asked if he was fixing to walk over top of me in my own house. You want to put it like that, back and forth. I was walking by you, Corey says, to go into the house because you sitting on the steps drunk, singing to yourself. You can put it like that. And again, he comes back without saying, "Excuse me." Corey doesn't respond. I asked you a question without saying, "Excuse me." Again, this is now disintegrating to what is seemingly a pathetic behavior. Pathetic behavior on the part of Troy. I mean, this is his son. Oh, I see. I don't count around. Oh, Corey says, "I ain't got to say excuse me to you. You don't count around here no more." And we've seen that. Everything we just saw earlier tells us that. And this is, for Troy, and this is why Troy's getting so angry and so upset. It's taking him time to realize the consequences of his actions, the consequences of his inability to take responsibility, his unwillingness to take responsibility for those actions. Oh, I see. I don't count around here more. You ain't got to say excuse me to your daddy. All of a sudden, you done got so grown that your daddy don't count around here no more? Grown to where you're going to take over? You're going to take over my house? You're going to wear my pants? You're going to go in there and stretch out on my bed? You ain't going to say excuse me because I don't count around here? Is that right? And Corey, to his credit, is standing up to his father. Remember, when Troy stood up to his father. And as a result of that moment of standing up to his father, he left. And in that story that Troy tells, that's when he became a man, is when he broke free of his father. And Corey says, "That's right. You always talking this dumb stuff. Now, why don't you just get out of my way?" And so now it's confrontational. "I guess you got some place to sleep and something to put on in your belly. You got that, huh? You got that? That's what you need? You got that? Huh? You don't know what I got. You ain't got to worry about what I got." Now, this is pivotal because for Troy, worrying about what his family has and does not have was a raison d'etre for him. He subverted that by his behavior, but that's what meant something to him. This moment here is the realization that what Corey says here is correct. You don't have to worry about what I got. It's none of your business. You don't matter here anymore. You blew it. You're a hypocrite. And Troy's response, you're right. You 100% right. I done spent the last 17 years worrying about what you got. Now it's your turn. I'll tell you what to do. You grown. We done established that. You a man. Now let's see you act like one. Turn your behind around and walk out of this yard. Go on, be a man, get your own house. Because this is mine. This is mine. He's throwing them out. You talking about what you did for me, what you ever give me. And Troy, them feet and bones, pumping heart, I give you more than anything anybody else is ever gonna give you. And Troy is in Corey in his defiance, you ain't giving me nothing. We're being asked to ask these questions. Okay, did Troy give Corey anything of value in his behavior and his treatment of Corey? Same in his, did he give anything to Rose? Did he give anything to Lyons? Gabe? Rennell? This is the core question of this character study, this play. You ain't never done nothing but hold me back. Afraid I was going to be better than you. Try to make me scared of you. This is the questions we're asking. We need to ask this. Did Troy give anything? Did Troy just take? Remember earlier when Rose is accusing him of taking and not just giving, and remember Troy's reaction, because he doesn't realize how much he takes. And right now, is Corey accurate in saying you didn't give me nothing? All you did was scare me. All you did was scare Rose. And you leave your mother out of this. She's got nothing to do with it. I don't know how she stand you after what you did to her. Fair enough. And he's like, now, do you leave your mama out of this? He advances towards Corey. What are you going to do? Give me a whooping? You can't whoop me no more. You're too old. You just an old man. So here we go. We're having the confrontation, mirroring the confrontation that Troy had with his father. Circumstances are a bit different, obviously, but it's the same principle. Shoves him on the shoulder. Corey, you're crazy. You know that. Go on now. You got the devil in you. Get on away from me. And odd thing to say, that Corey has the devil in him. Who's got the devil in him? Corey or Troy? Corey, you just a crazy old man talking about I got the devil in me. Yeah, I'm crazy. Okay, whatever. Get out of my yard. And now Corey really hits him with something, right? It ain't your yard. You took Uncle Gabe's money he got from the army to buy this house, and then you put him out. Right? I mean, that right there, which is true. We know that to be true, which we know that Troy is very uncomfortable with because it seemingly is contrary to his basic principles. It's that hypocrisy, and more than the hypocrisy in Troy, it's his inability and failure to acknowledge it and take responsibility for it. Advances, they're going to be a confrontation. Corey grabs the bat. Corey, again, I ain't scared of you. Troy, that's my bat. Notice that he's going to get into this confrontation with Troy's bat. Right? Corey is taking something that's Troy's. Remember, we're asking ourselves, did Troy give anything to Corey? Did Corey learn anything from Troy? Is Troy just a really bad guy? Terrible father, terrible husband? No redeeming qualities? That's my bat. They're circling each other. Troy says, you're going to have to use it. You want to draw that bat back on me, you're going to have to use it. Corey swings. A second time. He swings at him twice. He misses. Troy keeps advancing, you're going to have to kill me. You want to draw that bat on me, you're going to have to kill me. Corey backed up against a tree, can go no further. Troy taunts him, sticks his head off, offers him a target. Come on, come on. Corey is unable to swing the bat. I mean, his father, Troy, just put his head right there, so go ahead. But he can't. It's still his father. Troy grabs it. And Troy says, then I'll show you. And they struggle over the bat. The struggle is fierce, fully engaged. Troy ultimately is the stronger and takes the bat from Corey, stands over him, ready to swing. But he stops himself. Still has some control left. Go on, get away from around my house. Corey's stung by his defeat. Right? He lost this particular struggle, physical struggle. But he walks up slowly to the yard. Now, tell Mom I'll be back for my things. They'll be on the other side of that fence. And Corey exits. I can't taste nothing. Taste nothing no more. Now it's gone. He can't taste to satisfy his appetites, right? With taste, and it's all gone. There's nothing. This final confrontation, and now he's empty. There's nothing. Even Rennell now. Rennell is Rose's child. You know, yes, Troy is there, but he can't have a close, even approximate a close relationship. Takes the batting and begins to taunt death, again back to death. Anytime you want, come on, I'd be ready. But it ain't going to be easy. Back again, mirroring what happened that last scene as well. Okay, now we come to scene 5. It's 1965 now. 7 or 8 years later. And it's Troy's funeral. Notice how this jumping in time, the way the play is structured. We're left with this moment. We don't know what happened during those 7, 8 years. We're going to have to find out through what transpires here. Okay, but note what we've seen up here. Now Troy's dead. And we saw this all-powerful man, bigger than life, in control. And we saw this tremendous fall. Brought on by his own actions. Brought on by his own hubris. His own ego. A flawed, deeply flawed man. Inability to recognize the hurt that he's doing to others. Feeling that he has done so much, but not realizing he's done a lot less than perhaps he thinks. But how much has he done? What kind of an impact has he had as a father, as a husband? Rennell's 7 years old. She's looking at her garden. Rennell now, these scenes with her how the pivotal role she's going to make. Because now it's, again, she is Troy's child. And I told you, your garden ain't going to grow overnight. You got to wait. You got to be patient before you can fully recognize and appreciate the growth of whatever it may be. The garden is working as a metaphor here. The growth of the individual, the growth of the character, the growth of the human being. You just have to give it a chance. It'll grow. Right? Now we're thinking of this type of growth in all the characters. What kind of growth did we see in Troy? What kind of growth did we see in Corey? What kind of growth have we seen in Rose? Corey enters. He is dressed in a Marine Corporal's uniform. All right. So it's been, what, 7+ years. And clearly now we know that Corey joined the Marines. His posture is that of a military man, and his speech is clipped in sternness. 7 years as a Marine. Looks like he's meeting Rennell for the first time. I bet your name is Rennell. Is your mama home? Rennell runs up the porch, calls the mother. Rose and Corey embrace in a tearful reunion as Bono and Lyons enter. Don't cry, mama. What you crying about? I'm just so glad you made it. Okay, so they're gathering for Troy's funeral. How are they going to be reacting to this? This is the complexity now. On the one hand, we look at Troy and we're going, this guy, this monster. But they're all there for his funeral. And they seem to have accepted that this is who he is. Is it all bad? Is there any good? Well, I'm sure glad you made it. They let Lyons come. What was that suggesting? Who are they that let Lyons come? We'll find out in a minute that Lyons got himself in a bit of trouble. Jail. And Uncle Gabe's still in the hospital. They don't know if he's going to let him out or not. Gabe's been in there, we presume, for the last 7 years. Bono, yeah, you're talking about this Corey now as a Marine. Remind me of Troy when I first met him. Okay. Again, they're talking about setting up for the funeral. Note their moods. I mean, there's no talk here. I mean, they all genuinely seem to be behaving in a way as if there were no problems with Troy. Talking about right now, ain't she precious? Corey says she don't remember me, Mama. Well, we talk about you. She heard us talk about you. This is your brother Corey. Come and say hello. She says hi. And they're getting to know each other. And then Lyons is there. So it's a reunion. They're all together. Lyons says, I hear you're talking about getting married. Corey says, yeah, I found the right one. It's about time. Well, Corey's been in the Marines for 7 years. He's about to get married. Seems to have turned out okay. Lyons says, me and Bonnie split up 4 years ago, about the time that Papa retired. I guess they're tired of all the changes I was putting through. I always knew you were going to make something of yourself, he's saying to Corey. Your head was always in the right direction. You're going to put in you're going to do the 20 years. And he's saying, I think it might not. They're talking. He said, now this is where we find out what happened to Lyons. I guess Rose told you what happened with me. They got me down to the workhouse. I thought I was being slick, cashing other people's checks. They give me 3 years. I got that beat now. Ain't got but 9 months more. Ain't so bad. You learn to deal with it like anything else. You got to take the crooked with the straights. That's what Papa used to say. He used to say that when he struck out. I seen him strike out 3 times in a row. And the next time up, he hit the ball over the grandstand, right out there in Homestead Field. He wasn't satisfied with hitting in the seats. He wanted to hit it over everything. After the game, he had 200 people standing around waiting to shake his hand. You got to take the crookeds with the straights. Yeah, Papa was something else. Yes, right? So Lyons is talking in praise of Troy here. Is it justifiable praise? Well, certainly is for Lyons. With all his flaws, what he's saying, but this is what Papa used to say. And Papa was right. And because of what Papa said, it's helping me get through these tough times I'm in. He turns to his father, to Troy, to help him deal with the situation that he here takes responsibility for, right? I thought I was being slick cashing other people's checks. He recognizes it was foolish. He gets through it and turns and quotes his father and reminisces about his father as a means to get through these things. And Corey asks, you still playing? You still playing music? But yeah, I'm still playing. Still helps me get out of bed in the morning. As long as I do that, I'm going to be right there playing and trying to make some sense of it. Still has his music, different than Troy, right? Remember, he wasn't raised by Troy. Troy was in prison during his formative years. He follows the arts, non-pragmatic, non-practical approach. So in many ways, very different than Troy, but seems to have gotten certain qualities from Troy that help him, if not make him perhaps a better man. Okay. They're talking about that now Reno is in Corey's old room. He's got his football, right? Remember the football. Reno exits the house, ain't too much change. He's still got that piece of rag tied to that tree. He was there swinging that bat. I was just ready to go back in the house. She's talking about, right? Rose is telling him how Troy died. He swung that bat, and then he just fell over. Seemed like he swung it and stood there with this grin on his face. And then he just fell over. They carried him on down to the hospital, but I knew it wasn't no need. So how does Troy die? He's swinging the bat. It's the fastball. It's that whole metaphor. That's his battling with death. Right? And again, if we play out that metaphor, death came over the fence in that moment. Corey says at this point, when she's talking about this, reveals to Rose, I'm not going to Papa's funeral. And Rose's reaction is important. Hush your mouth. That's your daddy you're talking about. I don't want to hear that kind of talk this morning. I done raised you to come to this? You standing there all healthy and grown talking about you ain't going to go to your daddy's funeral? So this, what Rose is saying here is, despite all his flaws, and yes, he was horribly flawed, no one was wrong as more so than Rose was. But it's still that, hold on. You can't just, it's not just good or bad. There's a lot of bad things about your daddy. But there were good things too, and he's still your daddy. She's really unhappy, and Corey's trying to explain. I don't want to hear it. Just get that thought out of your head. And Corey, again, he's going to, I can't drag Papa with me everywhere I go. I got to say no to him. One time in my life, I got to say no. He's going to say no by not going to his funeral. Don't nobody have to listen to nothing like that. I know you and your daddy ain't seen eye to eye, but it ain't got to listen to that kind of talk this morning. Whatever was between you and your daddy, the time has come to put it aside. Disrespecting your daddy ain't going to make you a man, Corey. You got to find a way to come to that on your own. Not going to your daddy's funeral ain't going to make you a man. Hey, Corey came so he could have this moment where he could say no to his father by saying, no, I'm not coming to your funeral. Obviously, Troy's not going to hear it, but as on principle. And it's Rose who sets him straight, tries to set him straight. What's that going to prove? The whole time I was growing up living in this house, Papa was like a shadow that followed you everywhere. It weighed on you and sunk in your flesh. It would wrap around you and lay there till you couldn't tell which one was you anymore. That shadow digging in your flesh, trying to crawl in. The Father's a shadow. This presence, this dominant presence that was Troy on Corey's life, trying to live through you. Everywhere I looked, Troy Maxson was staring back at me, hiding under the bed, in the closet. I'm just saying, I've got to find a way to get rid of that shadow, Mama. And Rose's response, you just like him. You got him in you good. Corey says, don't tell me that, Mama. Rose says, you Troy Maxson all over again. I don't want to be Troy Maxson. I want to be me. You can't be nobody but who you are, Corey. That shadow that he was referring to over here wasn't nothing but you growing into yourself. It's an important statement. That shadow, as bad as that shadow was a necessary component of the development in Corey. And that can't be denied. Good and bad, that can't be denied. You either got to grow into it or cut it down to fit you, but that's all you got to make life with. That's all you got to measure yourself against, that world out there. Your daddy wanted you to be everything he wasn't. And at the same time, he tried to make you into everything he was. Wanted you to be everything he wasn't, and at the same time tried to make you everything he was. Maybe the most important line in the play. In relation to trying to understand Troy and his struggle to do what he thought was right. I don't want you to be anything like me, but I want you to have and be like me. This paradox, this conflict, this element of humanity. I don't know if he was right or wrong, but I do know he meant to do more good than he meant to do harm. It's the question we're asking when we try to understand Troy Maxson. Intentions, people can argue about the place for intentions, but we come back to those scenes we talked about in the past. Is his intent to make Corey a stronger, better person, better man, better human being? Or is it petty and bitter resentment, as Corey accuses him of, trying to hold him back? We don't get a clear-cut answer. Okay? And we certainly have Rose's interpretation. She believes, we have to believe that she believes. She stayed with him despite everything. They may not have been together, but she took on his child and raised his child. And they still lived in the same house. He meant to do more good than he meant to do harm. He wasn't always right. Sometimes when he touched, he bruised. And sometimes when he took me in his arms, he cut. And she talks about when she met him. Here's a man that can fill all them empty spaces you've been tipping around the edges of. Because remember, with all his flaws, and we've seen this right from the beginning of the play, Rose, who we've come to learn is an exceptional person. Why was she stuck with him? Why was she even stuck with him before the Alberta affair, given how he demeans her and whatnot? Because Rose saw that with all his flaws, even after he's with Alberta, she could still see the good in him. And we may be struggling to see the good in him, but Rose saw it. When your daddy walked through the house, he was so big he filled it up. That was my first mistake, not to make him leave some room for me, for my part in the matter. This is Rose, right or wrong, taking on responsibility for what she perceives was her mistake. Again, arguable whether that was her mistake or not, but she perceives it as a mistake. Not to have done more to ensure that he, what she means by leave some room for me, to have not insisted that he be more attentive to her sacrifices, which he probably wasn't aware of because he was so self-absorbed. And she is here taking responsibility for not having made that clear to him earlier. I took on his life as mine and mixed up the pieces so that you could hardly tell which was which anymore. It was my choice. This is Rose doing, again, Rose exemplifying all that Troy talked about that was important, that Troy himself couldn't maintain. But Rose did and does. I'm going to do her. She's talking about how she's going to raise Renel. This is Rose. Okay, and here comes the highest praise imaginable. I'm going to do her just like your daddy did you. I'm going to give her the best of what's in me. Of course, the difference is in Troy, if he was giving the best that was in him to Corey, it was also hurting him with the worst parts of him. We have this incredible scene here. Of course, Corey has to think about this now. And they sit down together and they talk about Blue. Remember, this is the song that Troy was singing. And this is the song that came to represent, identify with him, reminiscing back to when he became a man. And they sing it together. Hear it ring, I had a dog, his name was Blue. You know Blue was mighty true. You know Blue was good old dog Blue, treat a possum in the hollow, etc. So again, you have to imagine this on the stage. It's quite a poignant moment, because here they are drawing on a core element of Troy. Renel, remember, Renel's been there with Troy for the last 7 years. And they both sing together, Blue laid down and died like a man. Now he's treating possums in the promised land. I'm going to tell you this to let you know, Blue's gone where the good dogs go. When I hear old Blue bark, when I hear old Blue bark, Blue treat a possum in Noah's Ark. Blue treat a possum in Noah's Ark. And we get the biblical references, remember, with Gabe, to open up the gates to heaven. And this is what this is about. What do we make of Troy? Is Troy worthy of redemption and salvation? Corey says to Renel, you go in the house and change them shoes like Mama told you so we can go to Papa's funeral. This speech by Rose, coupled with this moment with Renel, and he realizes, no, of course, I'll go to the funeral. I don't have to define my manhood by not going to that funeral. It was my father, flawed, tremendously flawed. But what was Rose saying about he gave you things? We saw Lion saying, you know, that's what helped me get through my troubled times. And then Gabriel enters. Right, they let him out of the hospital to get to the funeral. Hey, Rose, I'm here, Rose. Hey, Rose, I'm here. Lord, look here, Lions. And Lion says, see, I told you, Rose, I told you they'd let him come. Corey says, how you doing, Uncle Gabe? Lion says, how you doing, Uncle Gabe? Gabriel now, remember who Gabriel is. He knows Troy's dead. He's in almost rapture. And what he comes to represent is the angel to open up the gates for Troy. So he has salvation in death. Hey, Rose, it's time. It's time to tell St. Peter to open the gates. Troy, you ready? You ready, Troy? I'm going to tell St. Peter to open the gates. You get ready now. And then Gabriel, with great fanfare, braces himself to blow. The trumpet is without a mouthpiece. Right? He's going to use the trumpet to signal to St. Peter to open the gates for Troy. He puts the end of it into his mouth and blows with great force like a man who has been waiting some 20-odd years for this single moment. For Gabe, you have to envision him running in. They let him out. I'm here just in time to let you in. Remember, he was always talking about Judgment Day. It's Judgment Day. Troy is dead. And here's Gabriel, just makes it in the nick of time to blow his horn, to let St. Peter know to open the gates. No sound comes out of the trumpet. He braces himself and blows again with the same result. A third time he blows. There is a weight of impossible description that falls away and leaves him bare and exposed to a frightful realization. It is a trauma that a sane and normal mind would be unable to withstand. He begins to dance. A slow, strange dance, eerie and life-giving. A dance of atavistic signature and ritual. Lyons attempts to embrace him. Gabriel pushes Lyons away. He's in a state of rapture. It is ritualistic. The horn isn't working. He is now, it's his whole body. He begins to howl in what is an attempted song, or perhaps a song turning back into itself in an attempt at speech. He finishes his dance, and the gates of heaven stand open as wide as God's closet. That's the way let go. So, did the gates open for Troy? The trumpet didn't work. But Gabe compensates for that into this almost pagan ritual. It does something. Finishes his dance, and the gates of heaven stand open as wide as God's closet. It's an extraordinary character study of this larger-than-life individual, Troy Maxson. Much of what goes, we can look at the other characters and their development and their transformations and their growth. And we can look at the family unit, and we look at these father-son relationships. All this is going on in this play, but ultimately we are left, and for this play to work, we have to at least be open to the possibility. The possibility that Troy did go through the gates. We have to ask ourselves, does he deserve to? We have to ask hard questions. That's why this play is so, I would argue, so well worth reading and studying. Because it's forcing us to ask difficult questions about human behavior and intent and what constitutes good, right behavior, and recognizing how we deal with concepts of forgiveness and acceptance. Acceptance of the limitations. You can't change the way people are, but you can change the way you respond to them. In any case, that will wrap up our study of Fences. Reminder that we are moving on to Hamlet for next week. So again, please try to get and start reading it. I know, again, you're busy with your midterms and all your other courses. I will be posting material before our virtual class next Wednesday. And we'll take it from there. If you have any questions or concerns, again, do not hesitate to contact me. If you want me to look over any component, your outline, a thesis statement, things like that related to your midterm, by all means contact me and I will send you my comments. And other than that, everyone stay safe and keep your eyes open at Omnivox for more postings. And in any case, I will see you all at our virtual class next Wednesday. All right.